Okay, good afternoon, and welcome to the Art of Healing. I thank you for joining the space, which is intended to be a brave space. I was just speaking with Ms. Carter, and she had the same. I felt like when I saw the name without any little explanation, like how would anybody know? What is it we're going to be talking about today? But today we are talking about healing from trauma of sexual violence. And so it's maybe a little heavy space, but I know it's also going to be a healing space for many. I am Carlotta. How do I do this? I think it's left click. Okay, so I'm Carlotta M Boodie, and I am a counseling psychologist. The prevalence rate of sexual assault or sexual violence is relatively high. Here in Guyana, and I was reading the study Women's Health Experience Survey done through the UN and their partners. And that survey says here in Guyana, and of course, you know, these are reported figures. So this figure is a smaller number than what truly is. But they tell us that 1 in 5 women in Guyana would have experienced sexual violence in their lifetime. The global estimates say 1 in 3. I got that from WHO. For men, you have in the room 1 in 33. And in transgender community, it's really high, 1 in 2. And I put that statistic there because this is a community I work with and have worked with and still do work with extensively. And I always like to bring this into the space. So because of the figures that we see in front of us, we know if it's 1 in 5 women in the Guyana setting, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, then there is at least 1.5. And we have people, participants joining us from online. And so I'm not privy as to how many people are online, but I know that they are also could be survivors in the space. So what I want to ask you to do is be sure to take some space. If it becomes too heavy, you can mentally check out and come back, or you can even leave the space and come back. That is acceptable. So before we go further into the activity, I would like to encourage you to join me just to center ourselves so that we can get ready for this kind of a conversation. If you don't need to close your eyes, if you feel safe, you can, but you can just sit like you're sitting now, your feet on the floor, and we're just going to take a few breaths so that we can feel better. I would ask you to breathe from your belly through your nose. And when you release your breath, do it through your mouth. If you hold your breath for 4, when you release it for 8. We'll take 3 such breaths, and then we'll continue the experience. So let's breathe from our bellies. Inhale deeply and release the breath. Inhale. Exhale. 1 more breath. And exhale. So our time today, we are intending to promote the benefits of using integrative multimodal approach to therapy for women who have experienced trauma. And then I would like us to have an experiential workshop. Do we have practitioners in this space? Anybody, you're a counselor, mental health professional, anything like that? Anyone? Okay. I know some of you might be teachers, supervisors, people come to you and they share their trauma and how do you, I'm hoping that you can get something from this experience that you can use as you have engagement with people. So I want to, what's going on? How is this moving? And I don't want it. I would like it to go back to, no, we're going too far back. We want to go to this. No. How is it moving like this? All right, knowledge check. That's good. I want to, okay. I want to give you two scenarios. I would like you to listen and then just make a note as to whether you think this was a sexual assault or a rape. You will just say yes or no, and then we can talk about it. So welcome to those of you who are joining us. I was just about to do a quick knowledge check before I define sexual assault and rape. So these two people were, well, one was a clients of mine. So Melissa, the young woman, she went to a bar, having a good time with friends, and she saw, we're gonna call him Mike, at this sports bar. She met Mike several weeks ago at a work event. So if she was like me, say, hey Mike, what's up? Come over. And they started to talk. They had a good, a good night talking, mixing with friends, and introduced Mike to her colleagues and so on. And then she said she was ready to go home. So she said, hey, I'm gonna leave, we'll see y'all tomorrow, whatever. And Mike said, I'll walk you home. I said, oh, sure, fine, because Melissa lived, let's say about 3 blocks away from the bar. So Melissa and Mike walked home, they chit-chatted. She got home, Mike said, I want to use your bathroom. So sure, come on up. Use the bathroom. She went into the kitchen, got some water. Mike is out to the bathroom. She's walking in towards the door to get to the door. He gives her a hug. She hugs him back. Take good care. But when he hugs her and it's time to loose, he didn't loose her. He kissed her. And Melissa kissed him back. It was very nice and pleasant. And so they were kissing for a while. Then Mike moved guided her towards the sofa. So they're sitting on the sofa, they're kissing some more. And now Mike starts to unbutton her blouse and she said, oh, no, don't let's do this, no, it's okay. And Mike says, who's gonna take care of this? Pointing to an erection. And she said, please, just go. And Mike didn't leave. Mike pulled Melissa's skirt and he penetrated Melissa. Melissa said she did not scream. She did not fight. He was done. He stood around for a bit, very uncomfortable, and then he left. That was it. Do you think Melissa was raped by Mike? Yes. Anybody says no? Some people say yes. Anybody would like to tell me why?
Because consent wasn't given for her to see. She said stop for so long and she said stop. Even though she gave consent for part, it was a kissing, she didn't give consent for what happened afterwards. So we will be considered.
Okay, so what happened to this? She was kissing with him.
She's allowed to change her mind.
She's allowed to change her mind. Okay, anybody else want to add anything there? Yes, sir. So she didn't struggle or scream. What does that mean? She was not raped? She wasn't raped because she didn't struggle and she didn't scream. All right. Yes, Miss Christchurch student.
No means no. I said no is no.
Okay.
I know how simple that was struggle. I said, all right. Probably she was shocked. I'm just scared. That exactly. There are other countries that have. That's the why for this problem. It's correct. I get it. No.
All right, so thank you for that contribution. Anybody, I can't see online and I don't have a moderator. So how are we going to know, sir? How would I know someone online is asking a question? Or commenting?
Can we write something in the chat?
Yes, that is what I was thinking, that you could write in the, oh, but I can hear you too. So I will remember, you please feel free to put something in the chat. And if you would like to speak when I ask the question, please just jump right in. Since I may not do well monitoring, because I may not do very well monitoring, and at this point, I can't find my slides anymore. Oh gosh, thank you. So we're going to talk about these in detail, some more as we go along. So I have, yes.
Here, legal scenario. If this woman responded in a positive way, then that kid should seem to be involved in it, then that becomes a complete right? Do you know she responded in that she was enjoying it too?
All right, so let's just deal with it right now before I go to the other scenario, because I have two scenarios. So it is very important for you to know, and I don't see too well, so I can't even see your name. Would you tell me, because I would like to refer to you?
Miss Williams.
Miss Williams said the first point that is critical with these encounters. Consent is most important when you're having a sexual encounter. Consent must be freely given. Consent is reversible. So I can be hugging and kissing with whomever, and then I decide, oh God, no, I don't want to do this anymore. So I said, let's just stop now. Or I could say, slow this down, way down. We're not going into all of this. I think kissing is fine. And that is enough. But I'm enjoying the kissing because I have a client, and I'm just gonna jump. I'm gonna just jump straight to the part that you're talking about. If you look at the Sexual Offences Act 210 of Guyana, and I am going to come here and say, you cannot infer consent. So you can't say, well, she didn't say anything. So maybe that means yes. So silence, if you look at the act says consent and belief in consent cannot be inferred, by reason of silence or lack of physical resistance on the part of the complainant. You go right ahead and I'm going to say something else.
So maybe I wanted to make it when you explain. But Ms. Williams made a point earlier when she said that the woman consented to the kissing. And I don't see that as consent. I perceive her to be passive in her behavior. Right, surely at competition was passive. And so the dominant personality took control, which was the guy. And that was what led to it. But when you refer to the act, like saying silence does not confer consent, it becomes challenging if the person is like her is passive. So the person doesn't fight, the person doesn't resist. So the dominant figure accepts the fact that, well, she doesn't fight, she doesn't resist. And I see where the gentleman is coming from. That maybe if she resisted, then I would have understood she meant no. but because she remained passive, that could be inferred as a consent, but the act is quite.
The act is quite clear, but remember when they were kissing, when he started to unbutton her shirt, she said, no, she said, right? She said, stop, and then he turned around and said, what are we gonna do about this? And she still said, no, I don't want to do this. Look, you had better go. And then he still continued. But we have to be careful. You know, it's also cultural. And I like the point you just made. We don't ask, you know, we don't say, let's kiss, or should we kiss? A person will just come right into you and start kissing your mouth.
Yeah, yeah.
And they don't, the first time somebody asked me, I was like, oh. But then again, so people, and this is something I was talking to, actually the grown party, and she was saying, you know, because I do a lot of sexual assault, this kind of work. She was saying my husband always asks me, and the other person looked around and said, yeah. I mean, does he have to ask you? Because he always says, babe, yeah. Oh yeah, please come right in. We welcome you. So happy to have you, really. So again, I can't see on the you can't see there. I'm the only one who can see here. Okay. So listen, I'm not seeing anything you're typing, because this is a lot going on here, right? And so please say something if you're online and you want to speak. I'm going to take a quick tutorial. How am I going to come back and post? Touch that and do that, and I'm chat, and I'm in. And I click close. You see? Tutorial, wonderful. So it is important. She said to me, he always asks me, so you want to get it? He asked her, and I'm looking at her like, okay. But it is an important point. If you're dating someone, if you're just going out with someone, and it's time, you know, since COVID, I now ask, are you comfortable with hugging? First, we used to like hug everybody, don't you? You just go hugging people. But it's very important that you understand this accent, that you cannot infer consent. You can't say, you know, your sister asks you for your food and you don't answer. She goes and she eats your food. She said, well, silence is what she did say. Silence is maybe consent.
Don't answer, don't answer.
Right. So if you don't say yes or no, if you don't say no, she gonna start eating your food. Silence is something they would say, and they would gonna eat your food because you don't. But the law said you cannot infer consent by silence. You gotta get a yes, not a maybe, not yes. Speak clearly. What did you say? Yes. The second part of the act that you must understand, because just, oh my gosh, in the past 2 weeks or so, 2 women that I spoke with said, well, you know something, I felt aroused. So I'm not even sure if I was raped. So let me tell you the story of another client of mine, Karen. Karen and John, they were both in the academy, police academy, and they were in a study group. She was having problems with questioning, how to question the perpetrator. So she said, let's go study. So she jumped into his car, they went someplace, and they studied, asking questions back and forth. She said this went on with 90 minutes. They were just understanding things. They were just throwback talking in the car and studying for real. She said he got a phone call, and as John is on the phone, he talked for a while, so it broke the whole, flow. So she said, it's good, let me just go home. So when he came off, she said, thanks, it was good. He said, yeah, it was good for me too, to help me clarify some things. And she said, okay, so I'm just gonna go. All right, yeah, but we could do this another time. I'm so glad I was able to help. And he should kiss her. So first she said, well, he kissed her, she like kind of kissed him back, and then she like, put pushed him. I said, what are you doing? We didn't come here to do that. He said, he pulled all the way back. I said, relax, you know, it's okay, just relax. And then he did it again. And she pushed out her hand and she said, leave me alone. This is not what we came for. Let's go. Let's just go. He didn't want to go. He kept doing the same. He wasn't pushing her or anything. He was just coming forward. She pushed him back. He came back, and he stopped. He was just like, I mean, that's what you do. Don't we? And I'm like, this far. It's okay. It was a big deal. It's okay. We're big people. So this continued for about 4 or 5 times. She said, I'm leaving. She attempted to leave. The door is locked. He has on a child protection, so she can't get out of the car. She's like, open the door. He says, what are you doing? It's okay, just relax. Anyways, happens that he asks her to relax, he pulls back, but he doesn't start the car, he doesn't open the door. They sat there, she said this went on for about 15 minutes back and forth to them. She said, listen, I was going to bring my daughter with me. I didn't, and I have to go. This is going to take me a very long time to get home, and I have to go get my daughter. Let's go. There were the question. She said to him, listen, this is the course we're doing right now. You know very well if anything after my saying no, it's right. He said, what are you going to do all this? You got that answer for it, just relax. Eventually, this is about 20 minutes. She said, well, she knows she got to go home to her daughter. He's not opening the door. He keeps saying to relax. And she just said, I can't tell you the word she used. I see the tree them sitting behind there, but it's a verb, it. And that was it. He did what he had to do. Then he took her home, or very close to her home. Because she can't get out of the car. She needs to go home to her daughter. And that's the end of it. The word, she says, if it's a verb, and what word you said before it? To herself. She said it loudly to me. She said she just sat there. The next time he came forward, she did nothing. She didn't say anything. When he was done, she was able to, she said, thank God, it was very quick. Well, I want you to tell me if you think
When he was done what?
so you think it was an assault when he was okay. When he, but this is exactly what she said. I'm telling you the story. I don't want to add anything to the story. I'm telling you exactly what she said to me. After he wouldn't open the door and let her home, this is what happened. Do you think, well, if since I'm not, this is what I'm just telling you what she said, I can add to it, that because she wanted to leave, she couldn't get out of the car, and she wanted to leave to go get her daughter, she allowed him to do whatever it is he wanted to do. So now he's done, and they go. Do you think that was, did you think he raped her?
Yeah.
Why did he rape her? Exactly. Coercion. He locked her in. She couldn't get out. There was no way she could get that door open after the first thing she said no.
Yeah.
Several times. She said, this is not what we came here. She went back to the law because they're in the PD. So they're in the academy, and she's telling him this is what the law says. So she's making him aware. Yeah. Remember, we both know the law, and this is what, if you continue to do anything that I'm telling you not to do, you are raping me. She said sexual assault, but he went on to rape her. It was actually a rape. So what we need to understand is that sexual assault, how did I move to the next one? Thank you. Go to the next one. It's not moving. Oh God, you're gonna have to do this lovely thing because it's not gonna work for me. It's not being nice. Go back to, why is it racing? You could try, you do it. I will sit here with my hands like this. I would like to see sexual assault defined. That's what I would like to see. So we already talked about consent, and it should be freely given, and it is reversible. And what the law says, because only 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, and last week, I had this client that says, but Carlotta, I was aroused. So I can't even tell you, I'm concerned, was I raped or not? And thankfully, I know the act. So I said, the act says, whether you are sexually aroused, including orgasm or ejaculation, if there was no consent, it is still rape. And that is what we need to understand. Now, when this happens, there is a post-traumatic symptom or symptoms that immediately occur. And this happens to a large percentage of victims. Let me explain to you, if you have a pleasant experience, that event, it is normal, is stored in your brain in a narrative format. So it is, you save that event in a narrative format, which allows pictures and words and pictures, and it is integrated in your whole life. If you have a traumatic experience, the part of your brain, the amygdala, that processes information, that sends it for storage, says, I sense a threat, I sense a threat. Once a threat is sent, then your hippocampus goes into stress mode. And so this is why we're coming back to the woman who didn't struggle and our young student that said maybe she was in shock. Because there are 3 responses when somebody is experiencing distress. They fight, so they can kick gun, whatever they can do, try to trick you, whatever they can do to get out is fighting. Some people will look to see, could I run away? How could I escape? And some people just freeze. Now, any one of those reactions are perfectly normal and acceptable. You cannot tell a person, well, you didn't fight, because their response, when that adrenaline and cortisol is released, it does any of those 3 things, and any one of the 3 is good, is normal. And so what happens, you're unable to store that memory. And instead of finding, we say it is free floating, because what you're experiencing in the moment is your reaction to what has happened, not the actual event, but the reaction to it. So the memory is not stored, it's not integrated. And that is why a person who has experienced trauma sometimes responds, or let's say react to certain situations as though it's happening right now. Because this memory, sometimes when the hippocampus is trying to get the memory stored, it tries to what we call refile it. And it seems to you like it's happening right now. The other thing is that when people have experienced a trauma, they try to survive. Their body goes into survival mode. So they might not be able to tell you the time, what the person is wearing. And this, I was a part of a multidisciplinary team for sexual assault. So you have the police, you have the same sexual assault nurse examiner, you have an advocate, you have the police advocate. So maybe you have two police officers there, maybe like 5, 6 people in the space. So because I lived on St. Croix, small island, I know the 3 or 4 sexual assault officers, they come every time. So Carlotta, tell your client to talk and to get a rape kit. I don't do that. I said, listen, I'm gonna explain to my client that I'm not telling them to do no rape kit. I'm not even telling them to talk to me. Because a lot of times you were like violated. You don't want anybody to touch you. You don't want to talk about anything. You don't remember anything in a linear way. The police always want, they say, go pull up, start over. So where were you again? So what time was this? Because they need facts and they needed to make sense so that they can file a charge and take it to the whatever. So if you can't, what was he wearing? Well, it's my boyfriend or my neighbor, so he was wearing a blue shirt with a this and that. Okay, you remember that part. You know the person. What happened first? Remember, they tell you a lot of mix-up story. And so the police may feel the person is lying because they're not making much sense. They can't put things in any order. It's very important that you understand and don't try to push. You give them time. So if you are a service provider here, if you're a nurse, you have to allow that person space. A lot of times, could you move this on like 3 slides? We're going forward. So what I have found, right, that the psychological impact can cause numbness and constriction. The classic PTSD triad. They're numb, their emotions constricted. I've had, I'll tell you 2 clients. Let's call her Gina. She calls me on the phone. She said, Carlotta, something bad happened. Actually, this person is let's say a medical professional. So she says, something happened. I need to talk to you. I said, okay, no problem. I look for an availability. Say, come at this time. She walks into my office. I know her. She's my client. She looks at me. I can see she wants to say something. She closes her mouth and she starts. She's not making any big sound. She just water just running down her eyes. Give her some tissue, and she keeps watching at me. She's doing this. Her mouth is open, but she's not saying a word. And then she cries a little bit more, and we stay there for about 15 minutes. She couldn't talk, but because I know, so I just felt I knew what happened, and I just talked to her about some coping and told her when let's set another appointment because she couldn't talk. Conversely, I had a client to walk in and say, I was raped. I said, what? I'm so sorry to hear that. How do you feel? She never bothered me how you feel. She told me the whole story. This happened, very flat affect. The point is, there is no one way that people who experience trauma should act or would react. Some people will come in very aggressive. And you're talking to me. They're cussing up. And you start to take it personal. It's not about you. They're trying to deal with their trauma and they're experiencing a range of emotions. They have lost equilibrium. They're unbalanced. They don't even know what to do, kind of. And so some people will talk as those in out-of-body experience. It wasn't me. They tell you as though they're talking about somebody over here. And while some people will just cry and talk part of the story and cry again, and some people don't shed a tear. I've had many because I worked in the Queen's misdemeanor treatment court in what I can never understand. The women are trafficked, but you arrest them for prostitution, say it again, prostitution, and throw them before the court. And then you call a trauma specialist to say, okay, talk to them to see if they got trauma. How you mean if they got trauma, right? So all of these people got all, come on in ladies, got all kinds of trauma, but they look differently, they act differently. Some people say, listen, I beat that man so bad, but then he blocked me out. So some people can, and I've had people sit down with me and they're cracking up. At some points they're laughing, at some points they're crying. And on to Saturday, I met a young woman and she's laughing. And she said to me, are you laughing, you know? I said, no, I'm really not laughing. She said, okay. Because she was talking to the police and he was wondering why she was laughing. And so they weren't believing. I said, I understand there's a trauma reaction. You're not really laughing. I understand. And I explained to her what was happening that was causing her to respond like this. It might seem inappropriate to some people, but she's coping. That's a coping mechanism. She smiles and she laughs, and then she continues to tell the story about what happened. And so, as professionals, it depends. They might be your teacher, but some of you are just a friend. So it's good to know. Somebody's saying something serious, you can't tell them. But you laughing at something so serious, it's a trauma reaction. They're trying to cope. So they're fidgeting. It's okay. And that is why we're talking about this multimodal approach of using expressive therapy so that people can communicate when there are no words to do so. And that is why we incorporate her. It's very good to incorporate in the practice of helping, of talking to people, of helping them process some things that don't necessarily require a voice. Because sometimes my very good friend, well, that was my sister, you start as friends and you become a family. I remember when she was raped by a boyfriend. She didn't talk about 3 whole days. Nobody knew what was going on. She just sat in the house for 3 days. She just cried for 3 days and never left the house and never talked. Did she have something to say? Yes. But could she find words to it? No. And sometimes when you actually say that word, it becomes so real that your mind can't take it. So we have to use what we call expressive therapies to deal with this kind of trauma. So I covered that. People feel, some clients come to me, they're very aggressive. They're cussing up. You ask them a question, they want to jump down your throat. It's okay, just back up, just allow them, give them space. It's all right. But what I have found, especially working in sexual violence and sexual trauma, I am not an artist. I can't draw to save my life. I incorporate, I did 1 semester of art therapy. I don't use it, like have a class and say this is art therapy, but I incorporate it. Sometimes when clients are mandated through the court, the first thing is, nobody wants the court to send them to nothing. They're already upset about that. So a lot of times they come in and we ask people the most intrusive questions when you say you're doing an intake. How would you like to meet somebody for the first time? And I look at you over there and say, well, that's a did you know the person you had it with was it for sex? She just watching me, right? I can't be seriously asking you that question. But when I meet a client for the first time, these are the questions I'm asking people. What nonsense. The intake is so intrusive. So a lot of times you have to find other ways to engage and to get people to open up. I just do a basic intake and then try to see what happens from there, how we will interact with each other. I have to get certain things recorded. I know that. And so sometimes I would say people resistant. I said, okay, I take out some coloring sheets or something. So I said, you want to spend some time, you can do what you want. And some people would be very happy I do that, so they could scratch up the paper and carry on and give it to me. And I said, how does that make you feel? So we start the night of the conversation. This particular girl came in, what we're going to call her, B, and she was not saying a word. It's okay. I know you were mandated to come to therapy, but you know what we can do today is maybe you just wanna, you like to color, you wanna do that? And she took the paper, she took the crayons, and she sat down for a little bit, then I saw her, she took, bowed her head, and she started coloring. So me, I threw back, right? Because I ain't got to do more work for the day. And the next thing I know, she's talking. So I changed my position because I have to pay attention. And that young lady told me so much about her. She never looked up at me again. She kept her head down. She took her time. She colored so beautifully. And while she was doing all of that, she was talking. That was what I was expecting. But that's what happened. And when she was done, may I keep this? I said, yes, it's yours. Because at the bottom, I would say, I have things like you're enough, courage, dear heart, and different things, different powerful messages. And she folded her paper. She gave me my crayon. She put it in my bag. I said, would you like to set your next appointment now? She said, yes. I said the date of the appointment for her, and then we did some more business and she left. People respond differently. I've had people just don't want to talk, and that's okay. I said, do you have your phone with you? Do you have data? Would you like to watch something or play a game on your phone? And so they sit there and they play games on the phone and I watch them. And sometimes when they are really relaxed, they talk, or sometimes they say they don't. That's okay. We have our next session on X date, and then they will come back because they're mandated, so they must come. And so it is very important for us to understand that people don't need to process with words all the time, and they don't have to tell you their deepest, darkest pain and secret. When they want to, if they want to, they will. So you say, so why are you going through 8 sessions? Because coming away from a lot of my clients are very happy to come to me because they tell because remember, these that I'm talking about now, these clients were still being trafficked. They weren't out of the situation. They just got picked up somewhere in Queens and got placed before the court. But when they left me, they were going right back to their trafficker. So sometimes the trafficker is sitting right outside waiting for them. So they're just glad to come and get away from everything and sit down in there. And sometimes that's enough for them. They don't want to talk. But what is very important with using expressive therapies is that people are able to go inwards. They're able to create something beautiful. It may not look beautiful to you, but it's very beautiful to them. They're able to move away from a space of pain because it's not every time you have a client that have survived, full stop. A lot of times you have a client that is surviving. They're still going through that trauma every day. So understanding that when you're going to treat, you need to understand that you don't always need words. You can do art. You can do, we're going to talk about 3. You can do narrative therapy. You can do movement. And I call it movement rather than dance. I call it movement because it's not necessarily dancing. All right, let's stop in case you have a question and then we'll continue. Let's see if our people on Zoom. Let's see. We have 6 of them there. And what have we said? All right, they haven't said anything. So we can continue. Yes, go ahead.
You said, police should not prosecute you. They have to wait to finish time.
Not the police. The police, but I'm talking about the therapist, the therapist or the counselor, the social worker.
That is not like this kind of thing. You police look at the document, client is not ready to speak. There's a report on actually was have to be made within a certain period of time. There's no requirement for that.
Because a lot of times when even when a client has been sexually assaulted, they don't want to make a report. They don't want to talk, they don't want to report it. They just need, when you go, they just need care. Like they want to have the morning after pill, that's very important. They want to get tested for STD, HIV, especially. In a couple of days, they want a pregnancy test, and in the US, everything you need insurance for. It's not like Guyana, where we walk into the public hospital and we wait several hours, but we can get everything for free. So what is good is that they come to the hospital, and they get these, if you say you were raped, there are certain services that you get without having insurance and going through all of that, if you don't have insurance. Because the other thing is that the police advocate will also be there and tell you what's your victim rights. Victims got rights, and victims can get money for this and money for that. So they come to tell you what your rights are as well. But the police want to catch that person. They want to put them before the court. They want them off the street. So their thing is, I need a report, and I need a report now. So listen, and if they don't tell me it now, but since we've done a lot of training, well, remember, just 3 or 4 people who are in that unit. Not the first responder, but once they get a report of a rape, then they will call certain people and they will come. So it's not a case where sometimes clients take 3 days before they want to talk.
Right. The other thing where from the officers and they try to push back and reporting the instances because if they're going to a rape case, different timeline.
Right, that's the opposite.
So that is why.
For a rape kit now, they want that rape kit 48 72 hours. They beg you, tell the client if they don't want to be rape kit, tell them please don't be it, please. And you see, sometimes I tell the client, oh, explain why was the benefit of doing the rape kit, because if you don't want to press charges now, and a couple months down the line you said, nah, I'm going to press charges, you have a rape kit, but so you have evidence. So sometimes you explain that to them, and some they want you to stay there, but it's very intrusive, very intrusive. They're touching all the parts that the man just touched or the woman just touched, and you don't want nobody to touch. Plus you got to tell the story, so you got to say, well, sometimes they ask, where did they touch you? So now they got to swab out your mouth. And it's remember, they're putting something into your mouth. That reminds me of what just happened. So it's hard to do. And so sometimes even there, when I get called to go to the hospital, I got my bag of things. I give people stress balls, I give them things to make flowers. And you can, with stress, people just sit there and do all kinds of amazing things, because they're stressed. So rather than pull out their hair, you may give them something and they, they do something with it. So it's important. You can go like 2 slides. I want you to do an exercise if you would like, right? This I got from my girlfriend, who is a psychologist. And actually, she did all this artwork for me because I did this presentation in a different space, like twice before. So a lot of times, leave it here with a fragmentation. When you experience trauma, sometimes you get broken pieces. We call it fragmentation. Sometimes you feel a disconnect. Like, have you ever, I don't want to put you in a bad space, but you experience something that make you feel so broken, like you can't even figure out who you are, you don't know, you don't feel like you. And a lot of times this is what happens. We just got pieces that's disconnected. And I went to this workshop with my girlfriend, Migdalia, and she made these 4 pieces, and she was talking about the disconnect. This has helped me in my own life. When you're broken, you don't feel beautiful. You don't feel seen, you don't feel like you matter. And what I'm going to ask you to do, you get your phone. I don't think they give us much paper in this thing. I thought we would have sheets. Make 4 pieces, something like this, are your own pieces, and try to connect. Make something of your disconnect. of your broken pieces of your fragmentation. Anybody who wants to do that, just stop for a minute so you can, or two. So any 4 pieces, it don't matter what it look like, because I can't even make that because I told you I'm not an artist. But she gave us this broken, like you're broken, 4 broken pieces. And then she asked us to connect them and make something out of them. Anything, connect them anyhow. You don't have to use, like connect this one to that one to that one. You can change it up and make it anything, connect it anyhow. But just try to connect it and make something that you think is beautiful.
Make something that.
Beautiful from those 4 pieces. Yeah, that was my reaction to her too, right? Like, what do you want me to make? So I'm going to show you one thing she made. But remember, she's an artist. She took 4 pieces. Go back so they can see the 4 pieces. And she fit those 4 pieces in different ways. Go come back, please. And she made that, and then she colored it and do her nice thing because she's an artist. But it gave me an idea because I couldn't conceptualize what I can do with 4 pieces because I'm not creative in that. But when I look at this, right, I saw such beauty, and out of this, I was able to do a presentation on brokenness. But it's high. Out of your brokenness, out of that trauma, as you work on healing, you can put those pieces together and make something really beautiful of your own life. You can heal. I've survived trauma. Took years. But healing is possible. Healing takes a long time. And there is still beauty that can come out. And a lot of people, especially people with a religious, and I find, because I worked in Queens, there are a lot of Guyanese in Queens. So a lot of Guyanese, if you have these problems, you come into Queens, so where I am. And the narrative, like you're damaged, you're no good, you're disgracing the family. Somebody committed a criminal act against you, but all of a sudden, you're the person who is now dirty. Actually, you're the criminal now. So out of the broken pieces, we can make something beautiful. Look what she made here. I don't know, but I took 3 of her pictures and I put it in my presentation. Because something, you see how sad she is, but she's still beautiful. She took time to go up her eyes and look at her fancy eyes. Huh? What did you say?
I'm saying that we're thinking that she said.
We're thinking. Well, yeah, because McDaddy was trying to show, this is her depiction of it, that you could go through anything, but look, you could still be, that's what she was trying to say. But when a person experiences trauma, sometimes a lot of brokenness happens because of it. But it's very important for us to know that out of that brokenness, we can encourage them, and we can even be talking to ourselves in this moment. That something beautiful can come out of broken pieces, right?
There's something beautiful always come out of in your experience.
No, because I've had people who die by suicide. They just can't take any more of this. So something beautiful don't always, to be quite honest, something beautiful don't always come out of it. But it can. It can. Something beautiful could come out, but not always. Narrative therapy. This is also an approach that assumes that people, their problems are separate from them. They are not their problems, and their problems are not them. A lot of times when people come to therapy, especially when people have experienced sexual trauma, depending on culture, religion, race, and all of that. The belief is that I'm no good, I'm damaged, no man is going to want me. And most of my clients were either, I've only dealt with one man who was raped in the home. And of course, they're 1 out of 33, that's what the research says. So there are many men who are raped or sexually assaulted. But just in my experience, there's one man. But the kind of narrative is very problem saturated. All about the problem. And it's okay to talk through your problems, say that there is a problem, but the problem is not the person. And so what narrative therapy says is that you can write the story of your problems. That's okay. But that's not it's different from journaling. Journaling, you just write. Narrative therapy is a little different. It's very intentional. We look at the problem saturation. Yes, those problem saturated stories. That's how a person will start. Today, I feel horrible because this happened to me. And the whole discussion is about what has happened. What we encourage is for you to rewrite that story and focus on your strengths. So today I feel horrible. My shoe heel broke. I missed the bus. And then the manager was just screaming at me. I just feel worthless. And you go on, whatever you want to say, when you're done with that, but I am here. I made it through the day. I'm alive. Whatever you can find that, look at your strength. I did not curse the manager. So I still have my job. I was able to, yes, I self-control. So that is a positive. You're not the story. And the manager thinks I am, but I know that I'm responsible. I was making good decisions. I was going to get there on time. At the end of the month, I'm going to be able to buy a new shoe. You put a more positive. So you look for the strengths and separate yourself from the problem. It is affecting you, it's impacting you, but it's not you. So rather than say, I am damaged, you could just say, I think my chances to get a husband are significantly dropped. Rather than say, I am damaged and I can't get a husband. So separating from the problem, stay in the problem, but you look for the strengths. Pull the strengths out and say, this is who I am. That's separate from the problem, right? So we want to describe yourself in such a way. So I had a young woman, relatively young woman, who experienced child sexual assault. And of course, you know, complex trauma and how that follows from a child with child sexual assault. You would have experienced neglect. You've experienced a lot of things but if you were assaulted as a child, especially by your father, stepfather, someone in the family, there is a little bit of, a lot of neglect. You feel you're not believed, you don't feel safe. So there are lots of things that happen that brings you to this point. And she just couldn't, she was tough there, she couldn't, it was coming up for her again, and she was having a lot of problems. And we tried this for weeks. Narrative therapy, writing. We don't care about grammar, we don't care about sentence construction, all of that, spelling, that is not included. What we're looking at is moving away from the problem saturated story and showing that you have strength, right? So you can write if you want to. a story of the time you felt tears on your face. Excuse me. You can write that story. So you can say I was, and I think I said that before when I was saying that you can, rather than journal. I was, I felt, I think, or I thought should be, so it should be I am, I feel, I think, I want. So it's all about the problem. And then you rewrite your story. And it becomes, you're focusing now. I was, before I was so, I felt, I thought, and now I mixed them up. One should have been the other. This one should have been first. So now you have a story that pulls at your strength, because sometimes when I talk to people and I say, but you survived. I said, how do you mean? I said, you were alive, you're right here. You're sitting here telling me you survived. You made it. They didn't kill you. Your spirit is broken, but you can work on your spirit and getting you, you can feel strong again. But people don't understand that they survived. They look at you and go, what are you talking about? How do you mean I survived? Man raped me. What are you talking about? And I give them that. But he did. But you're here. And you try to find the positive things to show them. I said to a young woman, I said, girl, you finished university and actually you got a master's degree. This same little girl who lived with child sexual abuse all her life that her mother just didn't see. Well, didn't want to see. And this is the first time she thought of that. She said, oh yeah, but it's true. I said, girl, you did 6 years of study. Look at you. Just look at you. And you got a job now. And soon you're gonna get an apartment. Write that. Your strengths. I know you've been through all of this. And we wouldn't forget it. We're accounting for it. But we're also seeing your strengths. So we need to look at that. The last one is movement therapy. I know I put this one, which I wish. But the movement, lots of clients when they hear movement, they say, I can't dance. I got 2 left feet. I'm in church. We don't dance. I can't dance. I said, it's okay. It's okay. I can dance. I can dance beautifully. They think I'm telling them about ballet or something. I could do that. But I'll tell you my story. One day I was in front of the court. I had a client who was excluded from her house, from her home. She had 3 children, a 16-year-old, a 4-year, and a 1-year-old. And she was excluded. She couldn't take them with her. She had to leave them there. And her mother came to help me. And she came, of course, she got sent to me. And I was trying to find a way, of course, to help her to cope, 1, but 2, to get her back into her home and until we solved this whole thing. So she said it is Mother's Day. Miss Carlotta, please help me out. I said, okay, I go to the judge and I'm going to ask her to release you back to your home for at least for the day, for the Sunday. You don't have to sleep there, but for the day. She said, oh, thank you. I said, let's look. So her case is called, I go up there and I talk to the judge and the prosecutor's there. And the prosecutor telling the judge all kinds of things to not to release this woman. And I am trying to tell the judge, listen, this is my report. She does but she said, we go back and forth, The judge decided to go to the prosecutor and say she can't go. Well, let me tell you, I was living. Came out of court, she's crying. I said, I'm so sorry. Spoke to the judge. The judge is not going to let you go back home. She said, but it's Mother's Day. I said, I'm so sorry. I know. let's come up with a plan as to how we're going to see your children. When she left me, I have to keep it together. I can't cry. So I tried to work through this thing with her, give her a solution, and don't let's just focus on what the problem is. And when she left, I left. The only thing I could do was to walk. I left the court and I walked. And I walked, and I don't know, I just kept walking because I had so much emotions, negative emotions. I couldn't think. I was angry. I wanted to tell the prosecutor off. I was so upset. I walked and I walked, and I think I walked for 5 minutes. I didn't realize I was walking so far. When I finally caught myself, oh my God, I gotta get back. And I walked until I could jump on a bus, and I got back to the office because I was going to get to work 2 hours later because I was walking. But by the time I got back to work, I felt very centered. I said, oh, so every time I have a hard day, actually, but it's a harder these days. Once I come out to the courtroom, it's a hard day. Some harder days, but I would just go to my office. This is the court door. That's my office. I would change my shoes into my sneakers, and I'm through the door. And I found I wasn't dancing, but I was moving. And I find that moving without the dancing helps. If you walk, if you exercise, if you dance, if you do meditation, mindful breathing, all of these move, stretching of your body. This is a powerful one, and I think we can try it if you want. When I am overwhelmed, and I've taught my clients to do this, I stand up, and I think I'm Superwoman. Maybe I am. Sometimes I can't raise my arm because too many people around or I'm worried. So I do this. Just I pull my core in because I need that. And I do this and I just stand up. Another thing that helps, I rock. You want to try it? You just open your hand like this and you hold here tight and you just rock. And it helps, it releases the stress. And if you are a clinician here, a service provider, a teacher, anything like that, and you sit and you hold spaces for people, you are going to experience a lot of that. The word is not really transference, but you're going to understand. The transference means something totally different. But they're going to, but in layman's terms, you understand this. Oh God, she transfers your spirit from your feelings. That one. So you sit with them. And so a lot of it comes here. So sometimes at the end of the day, you need to get up and stretch. And once I was at a retreat with therapists who do well, let me say sex work is something else. A lot of work with sexual trauma. And they taught us this already, how you just witness without receiving. How very symbolic, rather than, because it's so easy sometimes to take on everything that a client puts down, especially if their heart is breaking. And so it's very important even for you, as even as you teach the clients, you do these things too, because you need to get rid of vicarious trauma. You need to move that away as far as possible from you. So yoga, all those things, movement, they help you to express. Dancing helps you to express, because sometimes the movements are fluid and beautiful, and sometimes it's a rage. You know, you put a lot of energy into your dance, and you can watch somebody dance like that and you can feel, sometimes you cry, sometimes your skin grows when you watch them doing a beautiful dance for the audience, but the music and what they're doing is like they're in a battle, and you can see them fighting, and I don't know, nice fancy things like this and so. But if you do some of those things, you like go punching up a bag, movement, it helps. So I want you to, I think I have 2 more slides at the end. I want you to know that healing is a journey, and it is possible. It takes time. If you have, or you know someone, or your clients who would have experienced sexual trauma, yes, there's feelings of hopelessness, feelings of shame and self-blame. This is a big one. And this is something I've noticed a lot in Guyana, just because we are a smaller society. I can't say I noticed it in the US is so big. But here, I know a lot of people, the victim is blamed for their victimization. I don't know how. You get raped and they're bothering with, will you the wearing? But you didn't know he would do that. If he tell you to come upstairs to go in the bathroom, you didn't know that this was gonna happen? No. But we have to be so conditioned to be suspicious of everything that you can't, if you want to trust somebody, start a relationship on trust, and something bad happens, and people say, are you crazy? Why would you go for a drink? Don't you know after drink, a drink? You buy me lunch and I must sleep with you because you buy me lunch?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of self-blame. Because, and those are all trauma reactions, but they have to be processed. And change is a process. It takes time. And just know that we all should start by believing. If somebody said they were raped, I believe it. Because the percentage of people who lie about being raped is so small that it shouldn't make you think that everybody else is a liar. What I have found, and most of you young people, I've been sexually assaulted, and it took me, I don't know how much years. I never even told my mother. Years for me to say anything. And when I finally said, I thought I was going to pass out. I don't think I was going to survive. It felt to me like it now happened, and it happened since I was a child. And the moment I spoke about it, inadvertently, I made a mistake. It came out of my mouth without me knowing. No, really. When I was finished talking, I said, what did I just say? And I realized what I said. It takes time, but you can heal. All of us, no matter what the trauma is. You just need a community, and you can look for a good therapist. We all need that, right? I am a therapist and I have a therapist. You're a therapist and you have a therapist, right? Try to say yes. 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 All of us. And remember, your broken pieces can be connected into something beautiful. Thank you for very much. And this is the time you can ask questions or make comments. Let's see if our people are still with us. They are still here. Do you have any questions or comments?
I have a question. It's based on.
Yeah, you can go first. We honor you.
I have a question that's based on a child's experience I knew. She was, uh, she had a male babysitter who looked after her when her parents were working in the evening. He was a friend of the family.
Mhm.
And one evening, the babysitter could not be there, and the father uh, looked after them. And uh, after she had her bath, she said to her father, "You're not going to do what Dan, or whatever I call him, Dan does, is to put me to sleep." And actually, what happened is that Dan used to gently um, uh, stroke her clitoris, and at 7, she found it really
Pleasure.
pleasurable.
Yeah.
The issue is that what he is doing is wrong. What he was doing was wrong, but it was, how do you get a 7-year-old to say, to understand that that was wrong? And it was
It's so
not
pleasurable.
a thing,
Yeah.
because we always think of sexual abuse of little children as being something that really hurts them at the time, without realizing that sometimes what happens to them is pleasurable, and therefore they won't see it as something wrong.
It's the conversation. I haven't done a lot of work with children. I work with adolescents. But what I've learned from my colleagues who work with children is that the conversation is important. Talking to children about good touch and bad touch. Talking to children about their bodies and naming the parts the right way. Not your cushy or your what. I don't know what people say, man. Look, it's a vagina and it's a penis, and you need to use those real words. Because if you tell me the cookie, this body was licking my cookie, and then you say, yeah, you gotta throw it away. But that confuses the children. How you mean? Because they're not using the right word. So you're telling them something that don't make any sense. So for us in the room, parents, big sisters, aunts, and so on, use the right words and have the conversation. What is a good touch? What is a bad touch? As you continue, you will understand, help the child to understand. It feels good, but it's not for him to do that to make you feel good. And you need to explain certain things, age appropriate.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I just have just two submissions.
Yeah.
The narrative therapy. I think it's one of the remarkable way of getting to people, especially when they are experiencing generational trauma or a generational curse, to understand that it's something that is inherited, that you are experiencing, and there needs to be corrective measures, that this is not associated with you, meaning it's not something that you have done, that you have brought it on yourself, but it's something that the family have been experiencing for a while. This helps them to get understanding and closure, and to get healing as it relates to that. The other issue is getting people who are hurt or being violated to talk. It's one of the most annoying, frustrating aspect of psychotherapy. One of the things that I know that works for me is psychometrics, where you talk about other things and not listing. Most times people who are hurting are also hurting on other issues. And if you can deal with those, then it builds the momentum for us to begin to talk about other things. Yeah. You may want to talk about personality traits, their preference, political preferences, social events, things like that. And you begin to understand the temperament of this individual. So you begin to form an idea as to who you're dealing with, and it gives you the capacity to really ask the questions that will burst the whole. It's true. But the thing is that I perceive that maybe law enforcement and other persons we should not really deal with these cases because they're going on fact finding, and it might cause more problems than necessary. But I think that people who are gifted and trained in these areas should really deal with that. And you amend the laws so that if the person is not willing to deal with it now, at least they can begin to experience healing. And when they're at a place where they think they are close and healing, then I'm willing to give you the facts that you need. Yeah.
And in Guyana, rape, there is no statute of limitation for it. If you were raped, there's no statute of limitation for it. So that's it. And I was in the Virgin Islands. We did a lot of training. I worked for the territorial, the Domestic Violence Sexual Assault Coalition. So we were responsible for training multidisciplinary teams. And so now our DV and our sexual assault team in the police force, they are very trained. Like Naomi, I don't remember her last name. She is so good. She is so good with dealing with, because after years of sending them to do training or we providing training locally, it has helped. I don't know much about the police force, but I know they're getting training and I know they'll get there. They are getting training and they will get there. All right, any more questions? We're doing really good for time. We have 10 minutes and then our reporter is here.
I think that, sorry, I came late, but it was really interesting about movement health and other national. I think one of the biggest problems we have right now in Diana here is that it's not common, it's not well known that these are ways to express yourself.
Yes.
And there is also so much stigma still attached to sometimes, oh, you go running in the park or you go running somewhere, be like, oh, what's she doing there? What he doing there? You know, it's like it's still not widely accepted. And I think that is the next best step. That is the next biggest step, sorry,
Yes,
we need
to
to
get
take
you right.
to get it to the local man on the street. I was saying even this conference, while it's very interesting and there will be lots of good presentations, but how do you actually get the important points to the average John on the street about mental health? And it's the biggest challenge that we have.
So we want to get it through everybody sitting here, one. You go engage your friends and you talk to
Yeah, and
your
it's
sister.
good, but it's
and
still
hope.
like it's so
It's,
like my mom suffers with anxiety. And it was not, I think she's been having that for many years, but it was not until maybe the last year or two that we were actually able to get her to see a psychiatrist, and she went to therapy and stuff, but hey, it's expensive.
it is,
And then the public system is really hard to get it complicated. But also, like, she used to go to doctors, she had the symptoms, the pain, and so forth, and they keep giving her treatment as if it's a physical illness.
because
Right. It manifests
presents
itself.
as
It
a-
manifests
yeah.
itself as a physical thing.
Mhm.
And it was not until she started to get treatment for anxiety that
that-
it
that she
started to
realized.
come around, and she
Yeah.
started to feel good.
Yeah,
You know, so we have a long way more to go, I would say, to reach the larger section of our population.
yeah, I'm surprised that right now I live and I work here. And I have so many men. We were in a session before and they were talking about men not expressing.
Mhm.
And I'm surprised. I have so many men who come to talk. I was like, okay. And of course, some people are very superficial, but as you keep probing, and you find that, okay, they open up and they talk. But it takes time. It takes time. And there's some organizations, I work with Tamke, the Mind Fund, and I know that they send, I used to send people there to apply and they would pay for like 6 sessions for people to come to therapy. I don't know if they still have the money. I'm wrapping up with them. I don't know if they're gonna start over. So Tamaki is a good type on Facebook, the Mind Fund, or Tamake, TAMUKKE, and they get money from somewhere. And they pay for, but it's only women. They pay for women to have therapy. 'Cause that's their project, women, so. Yeah. So that's a good thing. But I thank you for sharing this space with me and staying in the space. It gets heavy sometimes. So I would say do something amazing this evening, even if it's a long shower. You might have, or somebody might call tell you about the price of water, but have a nice shower or eat some ice cream. You don't have to eat a gallon, hot water pints is good. But we came through a really heavy hour and a half.
Yeah.
I'm feeling it, so I'm going to the mall when I leave here. Yeah, but truly think about right now, think about what self-care you can do when you leave here and do it. Because for us, a lot of different things come up and just listening to all these stories is just horrible. So take care of yourself when you leave here, right? Think about what you can do. So thank you very much. And on Friday at 11, I don't know which room I'm in. I think it's room 3 or 2. I'm doing faith intervention, a preventative approach to DB. I believe it's in room 3. I can't remember. Room 2. Room 2.
As in religion?
No, I'm not going to talk about religion, but I'm going to talk about domestic violence in faith community. It's my thesis. I did this research on the response of Christian faith leaders, because I just couldn't do all faith leaders, Christian faith leaders to intimate partner violence in their communities. This is a really, this is my thesis research that I had to do. And it's mind blowing how people see domestic violence, what their thoughts are about these things. And so I'm going to just share my research and talk a little bit about that. So that's Friday morning at 11. If you're here and you didn't choose something else, come let's talk a little bit.